connection. While perpetual contact, that is, you're constantly in contact with people, but your family, this is within the family context, but you're constantly in contact with folks. Perpetual contact is positive for achieving efficiency of work and positive for family access. For the busy parent, this constant access can be extremely stressful. If one is always connected and always accessible, the individual feels like he or she is unable to turn off the access. There is no escape, no relief from the perpetual on-call state that is paradoxically a relief and stress at the same time. And that's part of what all this stuff is about. And as I say here, I'm feeling really gloomy about this stuff. I just want to go into the forest and beat a drum. I don't know. So a lot of people do this. A lot of people just want to escape, say but you can't do that. And that's the point of my last slide. Okay, next slide, 10. When they move into this next section on page 199 and talk about ICTs and ubiquitous computing, they basically just I only have one little bullet point here on again slide 10. It's just more gender problems. Basically, according to Queensberry and Trouth, although men and women both report high levels of work-life imbalance, women often do most of the domestic work, and women and men exhibit different behaviors regarding work-life balance. Of course, men may choose to stay at home with children, which may impact work-life management. However, recent trends are inconsistent. In addition, women in the IT profession tend to experience more stress due to imbalances in work and family than do their male counterparts. So a lot of this stuff, as I sort of mentioned, because of our cultural expectations that women are the primary caregivers, all this stuff makes it much more difficult for women than it is for men. 11. When they move into telework, lots of folks doing it. And most are like me. What did it say, middle class in their 40s or something like that. There is some positive stuff in this one. The book and the research shows that you can have more job autonomy with teleworking if you're working at home, and that reduces work-family conflict. But overall, again, the results are mixed. Some, again, argue that it creates the whole work-home spillover. There was that Canadian study that you might have read about. Most of the folks work at home because of job obligations, not family obligations. You would think that you want to work at home so that you could be with your family, but at least this Canadian study is saying it's usually because you have more work to do, or you need to do the work at home. And usually when you're working at home, you're doing free overtime if you're on some sort of salary. So basically there's all these pros and cons if you telework. You must weigh the pros and cons when you're dealing with deciding whether you want to work at home or not, or telework. And it might impact women and children in a negative way, the research says. There's a nice quote on page 200 here that talks about all this idea of sort of at the bottom, working parents who telecommute experience both cost and benefits of negotiating family and work responsibility. Hilmo found the gender downside to telecommuting is that telework allows women more flexibility, but their work-life balance is likely to be achieved at the cost of advancement. So, there's just a lot of stuff in here about, again, the whole paradox, again, the theme coming out of it can be helpful but also hindering all at the same time. The next slide here is all about the next section on mobile or cell phones. Most folks use cell phones or mobile phones for relationships, not so much for work, they say. And so there is a sort of phone conversations when you're actually talking to people on the phone rather than texting has sort of an affect-oriented and psychological pleasure to it. But it can be, as going back to the perpetual connection, a sort of a leash. We're always on call, in other words. But it can also be liberating and also give us a sense of freedom. They talk about how mobility and immediate access can be a good thing. We can get instant gratification, both instrumental, that is, if we have to get something done with coworkers and I got to quickly call somebody. I was at I think I might have mentioned I went to University of Arkansas, my undergrad and master's, and I was there for some sort of wedding, and one of my buddies was in the back seat, on the phone talking to some salesperson. He was I don't know, basically working in the back seat of the car, but he had to do it. But then also it has sort of more of a affection type of gratification with family. I can wherever I am, I can call my mom and say, "Hi, what's up?" And she says, "What's up?" Thus, it can mobile phone and talking on the phone can strengthen and enhance family ties, but it also can create a private sphere in public spaces. As I just said, I can call my parents who live in Tulsa while I'm in a Starbucks or something like that, or at the mall hanging out, as I like to do. I like to loiter. So the whole private, so we are having more private conversations in public places. You've been to the Bilo or the grocery store or the Publix or wherever and heard people having these very personal conversations in front of everybody. The next slide here moves on to talking specifically about teens and tweens and mobile phones. And some of the information talks about how it offers a way for kids to achieve freedom from their family. Woo-hoo-hoo. And also new ways of expressing themselves, which can be good or bad. And it's a great way for teens, particularly, to stay in touch with friends. I'm sure they're constantly texting one another, doing homework. But yikes, parents can then also check on them a lot more easily. So freedom is not free. They talk about how the mobile phone is the new umbilical cord. I like that metaphor. So it offers more flexibility, but also, particularly for teens, more accountability. Because mom, pa, if you can always, find you. Particularly if there's like that little app or whatever where you can actually see where people are and everything like that. Very surveillance-y. The next section, blended uses, I'm on slide 15 now, sort of talking, texting, and instant messaging. Basically, and this is why, the whole blended, because we talk to people using all these things, we text people, we do instant chat. I was chatting last night on Facebook with one of my former students who's in Egypt right now. She's originally from Gaza. She's trying to get her family out of Gaza because they're being bombed. God, what a world we live in. But in any case, we tend to text people or use text to communicate with friends, not so much with work. And I've already mentioned that. It was in another section as well. And kids can call parents and text friends, but they tend to text friends more than call friends. And parents prefer talking to their kids rather than texting their kids, the research says. And as I say here, teens are weird and smelly, so they tend to text more than talk because they're in the awkward stage. Maybe they're shy, not feeling very confident about themselves. And there is this notion that perpetual contact through text can lead to new levels of intimacy. Um, the more you text, the more you love. This does not get into any sexting. Poor, I still cracks me up about these stupid people who do stupid things. I mean, God, with a name like that, what were you thinking, Anthony Weiner? Jeez, what a dummy. In any case, the other thing is that families can be communicatively present, even though they're physically absent. Call or text the kids at camp or something like that. I have a good friend of mine whose daughter is at camp, and she's always getting pictures and texts and then posting them on Facebook and everything like that. So she's not there physically, but sort of there communicatively and emotionally. Texting is good when talking. It can be inconvenient or appropriate. As I say, this is my own sort of example. It's easier to text in church than to call somebody on the phone. I love. Well, I don't know. Well, never mind. Okay, texting is. If we're going back to privacy issues. Texting is a quick connection and can be convenient when talking would be too emotional. Sometimes we don't want to talk about things because talking it seems more emotional than just texting, even though we go LOL or give those little emoticons or something like that. So sometimes when we want to do something or say something or communicate with somebody, but we think talking to them is going to be too emotional, we text instead. That's what the research says. Okay, so the next little section was on social networking sites, again, SNSs, so stuff like Facebook. And a lot of this stuff we've already covered because they sort of imply the whole idea of using this stuff because of issues of communication apprehension. I like ACAR's stuff. I think that stuff is really, really important, and this is on page 205. ACAR, this is sort of the first paragraph. Underneath that new section on social networking, ACAR examined the differences in users' online networks versus real-life networks and discovered that gender and extroversion are the major predictors of both online social network size and time spent online for social networking. In particular, women have larger networks and spend more time communicating online than men do. That's pretty interesting. I did not know that. It also talked about how specialized social networking sites can be helpful. There was that study done in Hong Kong where mothers had some sort of online group asking for advice, mothering advice and stuff like that, which led to face-to-face relationships. And again, they also talk about Twitter as a form of SNS. Finnegan! Go tweet. Go tweet. And it says folks tweet a lot at work. I think they tweet more at work than at home, which I think is pretty interesting. And they also, within a family setting, you can use Twitter to stay connected to other people because you can send them straight tweets. So go right now and tweet your kids. I thought the last bit on page 206 was pretty interesting. Crane and Morales argue that Twitter is being used more often by working parents, especially working fathers, to stay connected with their families. Twitter's ease of not having to create a profile or update a web page allows working fathers to connect quickly, easily, and discreetly from their mobile phones during breaks and, if necessary, in meeting without disrupting workflow, which I thought was really, really interesting. There was some stuff I might have skipped over this. I do remember there was also information. Yeah, I skipped the whole gender in mobile phones. And that was slide 13. I'll let you look at that. I moved straight from mobile phones, slide 12 to slide 14. Slide 13, but I think it's really, really important. Women are more accessible now as caregivers. They have those terms of like electronic